his insights into the NBA. The NBA regular season, or preseason as I call it, is almost over. The playoffs will begin here in a few weeks, and they will not feature LeBron James for the first time in a very long time, and only the second time in his career. The Lakers have been a dumpster fire since LeBron's groin gave way on Christmas Day, and everybody points to the fact that the Lakers were in fourth place at the time. They were 6 or 7 games over 500, but it was really early in the season. And quite honestly, with this roster, I'm surprised everyone else is so surprised that this team is not good. The Anthony Davis situation really shed a spotlight on the Lakers that they weren't ready for. Magic Johnson told us this was a 2-year plan, that they were going to need to bring in another star. And Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka dropped the ball with Paul George. This was supposed to be Paul George and LeBron James, and it could have been. By all accounts, it could have been. But Paul George did not feel the love. Not from Magic Johnson, not from Rob Pelinka, compared to how they pursued LeBron James. But they knew LeBron was coming. Why weren't they parked out front of Paul George's home? Why did they let him go to that party with Russell Westbrook, where he took the stage and said, I'm staying in Oklahoma City? And look, that forced the Lakers' hand. Now, this offseason is where it's at. They have to land a marquee free agent. And I don't think that's out of the question. I refuse to think that people do not want to play with LeBron James. Still the best player in the NBA, or at least one of the top 3. So I think they get a free agent. But then Anthony Davis happened. Anthony Davis, his agent, and the Lakers overplayed their hand, and the New Orleans Pelicans called their bluff. Now it's possible that the Lakers get him this year anyway, in the offseason. It's also possible he goes to Boston, or he's not traded until a trade deadline, or he becomes a free agent. Those are all possibilities. But let's look at this year's team. This is a team that lost LeBron James for 18 games. Brandon Ingram, he's the second leading scorer on the team. He was hurt for most of the season as well. Lonzo Ball has been shut down. He only played half the season. And the rest of this team is a bunch of veterans who just weren't going to be what LeBron James needs. Rajon Rondo, Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee. These are just guys. They're not shooters. They're not all that good, and they're well past their prime. Sure, Rajon Rondo had some moments early in the season, but he's only played 38 games, so he hasn't been a big factor either. These young superstars that the Lakers talk about, Josh Hart, a down season, Kyle Kuzma, an above-average power forward, who shoots 6 3-pointers a game and makes 2 of them. These just aren't great players surrounding the greatest player of this generation, maybe the greatest player of all time. So the Lakers are definitely going to need to do something in the offseason. They're going to fire Luke Walton. That seems obvious. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that Magic Johnson is gone, although I think Jeannie Buss gives him one more year, one more chance to land the big whale. Maybe 2 big whales. But one thing's for sure, this roster will be much different. I think they drew bad luck with Brandon Ingram's injury. The blood clot issue is one that shut down Chris Bosh's career. By all accounts, we aren't there yet with Brandon Ingram. But that's a devastating injury, and he certainly has lost his trade value considerably from where it was during the Anthony Davis debacle. So we'll see what the Lakers do. One thing I will not do is blame LeBron on this. I think LeBron is the best player I've ever seen play basketball. He had another great year. He is in year 16, and he will be in year 17 next year. He will be 35. He is going to wear down. Father Time will win this battle. But he is still one of the best players in the world. I think players will want to play with him. And I think the Lakers are going to put together a good roster next year and probably make some noise in the West. Also making noise in the West, the Golden State Warriors. But for a really weird reason. They lost another game at home by more than 30 points. That's the third one this year. No team has ever won the NBA championship losing that many games at home by that big a margin. Nobody in the history of the NBA. So, of course, Kevin Durant was asked by the media, why is this happening? Do you find it odd that you're losing this many games at home by this big a margin, and what does it say? And Kevin Durant, the wonderful human being that he is in dealing with the media, said he doesn't think it's odd at all that everybody's had their bleeps kicked in at home and it happens. No, Kevin, it doesn't happen. Not this many times, by this many points, and it shows something that's pretty obvious. The Warriors are so smug and so pompous that they are convinced that they can turn it on in the playoffs and they don't need to go through the steps that other teams have to go through that history shows is necessary to win a championship. Now, are they wrong? I don't know. They're back-to-back champions, and he is the back-to-back MVP. So maybe they know more than we do. It's possible. But I do think it's important. I do think it's odd, Kevin. And to dismiss it because, as you've said, you just want to play basketball, is foolish. You should embrace the question, answer the question, and stop being such a pain in the butt every time somebody asks you a, wait for it, basketball-related question. Remember, Kevin, that's what you wanted. And you blow that off too. Now, the Golden State Warriors still have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. They have Draymond Green too, but he's much different than he was in seasons prior. He's not the same player. And they have Boogie Cousins, who has played amazingly well on the offensive side, and he's been pretty good defensively too. But a little adversity can make good Boogie become bad Boogie really quick. And that's why Andrew Bogut was brought back. Andrew Bogut is roughly 85 years old and wasn't great at basketball when he played basketball for the Warriors a few years ago. But he's strong defensively, he's a good foul shooter, and Steve Kerr trusts him. That's the key here. Steve Kerr's trust in his team is probably his most powerful trait as a coach. He knows Steph Curry can shoot the ball from anywhere. He knows how to put Steph Curry in that position, and Steph Curry usually does it. Same thing with Klay Thompson. And he trusts that Kevin Durant, in a moment, when it's needed, can make the shot. Now, I don't think he trusts Draymond Green anymore, and I don't think he knows exactly what he's going to get from Boogie Cousins in the playoffs. So Steve Kerr is doing everything to keep this train on the rails, to keep this ship afloat. And the Warriors may just go out and dominate, but there are teams coming for them. The Houston Rockets are real. I didn't think they would be. I thought they gave up too much defense, too much shooting, and they were going to let James Harden do too much. And I'm going to get to that in a minute because that turned out to be a great idea. But they are coming. Oklahoma City, they have fallen off. But they still have Westbrook and they still have Paul George. And if somehow Russell Westbrook remembers how to play basketball again, at his level, don't get me wrong, he is averaging a triple-double again. But if he becomes that elite player for just one series, they could challenge the Warriors. And there's still somebody coming out of the East. I still think it's Toronto, and I think Toronto is a good matchup against the Golden State Warriors. But they have to do something that no team has ever done before. They are the most talented team that we've seen put together in this generation and maybe any generation. So they certainly can do it. But it's not, as Kevin Durant said, not odd. It is odd that they've lost this many home games by this many points. There are clearly cracks in the foundation, and we'll see if anybody can take advantage of that in the playoffs. I mentioned the Rockets, and James Harden is turning into the best player in the NBA. Now, I know that's going to surprise a lot of people that I have that opinion, because we all know James Harden. He's been in this league now 10 years. He is a ball-dominant, ISO-heavy shooter who plays limited defense, doesn't care about his teammates, and has a really fun beard. But the narrative has to change on James Harden. It just has to. We saw him streak a number of 30-point games together and carry that team while Chris Paul was out and Clint Capella was out, and the rest of that team tries to figure out how to play NBA basketball. James Harden has been the only weapon on that team for most of the season. Now Chris Paul is back, Capella's playing well again, but James Harden at age 29, and again, that's not 34 like LeBron, but he is 29 years old, is having a historic season. And he still is the prolific scorer that we know him to be. But now he's taking the 30.9 point average that he had last year when he won the MVP, and he's added almost 5 points to it. He's averaging 35.2 points a game. This is somebody who averaged 25 points over his career. That's a lot. And now he's averaging 35. He also has 7 assists a game and 6 rebounds a game. Now his assists are down. They're down about 2 from his MVP year last year, but the scoring is up 5 points. He is absolutely dominant this year, and he's had to be. Now a lot of people are going to point his defense. They're going to say he's not a great defender. He's not a great defender. His defensive win share is 3.1. That's slightly below average, but his offensive win share is the best in the league. His total win share is best in the league, and his value over replacement player is best in the league. Look, I told you there'd be no math in this show. All these stats just go to show you that he is changing the narrative of what he is. The most valuable player in the league, not just its best scorer. Now he's 29. He travels a lot, not on the planes and trains and automobiles, but on the basketball court. And he gets some questionable foul calls. So the question is, in the playoffs, how will that translate? Will he end up getting the foul calls, getting to the line, and making the same amount of free throws that he's doing now, which is a huge part of his game? His free throw shooting, he averages 11 attempts a game, makes 88% of them. So he's getting 9.5 points a game from the line. That is absurd. I don't know if that continues in the playoffs, but my guess is he is going to continue to tear it up. The Rockets are playing their best basketball right now. Remember, they started out horribly this year. I think they started out somewhere around 5-13 or 3-13. Now they are right there, sitting at third place in the West, only 4 games back of Denver and Golden State, in a really good position to challenge Golden State, probably in the Western Conference Finals if the seeds hold out as they do right now. So James Harden deserves credit as what will probably be back-to-back MVPs. He also deserves conversation as the best player in the NBA. I know we get enamored by defense. I know we get enamored by the ability to pass the ball around, and we don't like the ISO ball, but listen, he's doing what he needs to do, and is translating the wins for his team, and he is doing it at a historic level. So credit to James Harden for changing the narrative a little bit on his career, on himself as a player, and on the rebuilt Rockets, because they were built on defense and three-point shooting last year, and now they are built on the back of James Harden and some good role players, but really James Harden. I do want to mention the Eastern Conference really quick, most specifically the disarray that is the Boston Celtics. Boston is currently sitting at 5th. Remember this? Remember how good Boston was going to be? How those plucky youngsters, Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum, how they carried the decrepit veterans that were hurt, Hayward and Irving. They carried that Celtics team to the Eastern Conference Finals. And now that they got Hayward and they got Irving back, they would be unstoppable. Well, that turned out to be a crock of crap. And a lot of it has to do with the mercurial and difficult Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has been circling the drain the entire season as the guy who wants to be a leader, wants to be in Boston, then doesn't want to be asked about it being in Boston, then hates the media, then hates the media again, and then starts to belittle reporters. And when that backfires on him, he points the finger at Brad Stevens and his defensive game planning for Kemba Walker, and wait for it, the Charlotte Hornets. That's right, you were lit up by the Charlotte Hornets. But you're the Boston Celtics. You have everybody back. You